Good evening, USA. Good morning, Asia, and good night, Europe. Welcome to the World Today discussion series organized by the UCLA Center for Global Management. I'm Chris Tang, Faculty Director of the Center for Global Management. Before I introduce our moderator, Ying Hui, let me say a few words about today's topic. Generative AI has the potential to revolutionize patient care, streamline healthcare operations, and unlock the value within the healthcare industry. Generative AI can integrate patient data, perform diagnostic analysis, and suggest prescription for healthcare professionals. While the potential of generative AI remains untapped, there are challenges of using this AI to manage patient care. These challenges include privacy concerns, ethical concerns, and legal issues. How should we explore the opportunities of using AI in the healthcare industry? To examine this question, I'm delighted to introduce our distinguished guest and our moderator, Ying Hui, who will introduce our distinguished panelists later. Ying is currently the Global Marketing Director of Amgen. Her focus area include healthcare and biotech. At Amgen, Ying has an extensive experience in strategic planning, marketing, and corporate finance, as well as a deep understanding of healthcare systems and policies in different markets, including the United States, Japan, China, and Southeast Asia. Before working for Amgen, Ying worked at Deloitte Consulting. In addition to receiving her MPH from Chinese University of Hong Kong, Ying is a proud alumni at Anderson, who received her MBA in 2014. At the Anderson School, she has been deeply engaged with our Center for Global Management as the CGM World Conference Student Director. Ying, I'm very grateful to you for serving as our moderator this evening. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tan, for the introductions. Hi, everyone. Our dear audience, welcome to join us virtually for the discussion on artificial intelligence and healthcare. Today, we are joined by two healthcare technology experts, Professor Ting-Long Dai and Aditi Gupta, to explore how AI is revolutionizing the diagnostics and treatment, in addition to enhancing the patient care and workflow efficiency. And to the audience, we'll leave the last 10 to 15 minutes towards the end of the panel for Q&As. So please save your questions and submit it to Slido. Before we get into the discussion, please allow me to properly introduce our panelists. I will start from Professor Ting-Long Dai. Professor Ting-Long Dai is a Ferrari Professor of Business at Johns Hopkins University. And as co-chair of the Johns Hopkins Workgroup on AI and Healthcare, his ongoing research focuses on incorporating AI into the clinical workflows and improving the productivity, access, and equity in healthcare delivery. He has pioneered the development and teaching of a first-of-its-kind MBA course, Data Science Artificial Intelligence, which is now be required for all the full-time MBA students at Johns Hopkins. Poets and Quants named him as one of the world's top 40 under 40 business school professors. Professor Dai has been quoted hundreds of times in notable media outlets, including New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post. He has appeared on national and international television, including BBC News, CNBC, PBS NewsHours. He has been a keynote and feature speaker at numerous AI and supply chain events, and served as a vice president for the organization called Informs, the world's largest association for the decision and data science. Professor Dai received his PhD in operations management and robotics, jointly offered by the Tepper School of Business and the School of Computer Science at Carnegie Mellon University. Welcome, Professor Dai. Our another panelist is Aditi Gupta, who is the executive director at Amgen, leading the customer innovation for patient and provider technologies. Aditi leads the organization to connect with our patients and providers through new channels, focusing on accessibility and affordability of treatments. She engages not only with big technology companies such as Google, Amazon, or Microsoft, but also numbers of startups for continuous innovation. Aditi spearheaded Amgen's first software as a medical device for severe psoriasis patients, and also pioneered Amgen's first omni-channel orchestration platform and used AI to personalize content based on the engagement personals of patients. Aditi brings over 20 years of extensive experience in software development with a specialized focus on creating personalized engagement across diverse sectors such as sports, entertainment, and biotech. And she is a proud Anderson alum, executive MBA class of 2023, and the recipient of the Global Management Leadership Award. Welcome. So Tinlo and Aditi, as esteemed experts in healthcare technology, you both are involved in various aspects of this field. Could you please share and highlight some of the work excites you the most? We'll start with Aditi, please.
Thank you so much, Yin, and a pleasure to be on this panel. Let me talk a little bit about Amgen, the company that I work for. So Amgen is a biotech company founded in 1980. We serve about 10 million patients, and we are in 100 different markets with 27 of our medicines approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. And I would say my job, I'm one of 25,000 employees, and my job is to serve our patients first. Specifically in the global commercial operations group, I'm responsible for leading our solutions architecture for patients and provider engagement. When you're a company that's serving 10 million patients worldwide, we need to make sure that our technology infrastructure is robust. It's removing any gunk that we say in the system, and it's making sure that we're reaching our patients with the right information. My focus is really to ensure that our patients and the providers have the correct information, that they are getting, that they have access to affordability and any other options for reimbursement. So I'm looking forward to this panel discussions, and I'll hand it over to Ting Long.
Thank you, Aditi. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor Tang and also to Yin for inviting me to join this very distinguished panel. My name is Tinglong Dai, and I'm from Johns Hopkins. I do not have any formal affiliation with UCSF anything other than that big fan of the anything, big fan of this community, and very proud to be a friend of this community. And so my work at Johns Hopkins really, well, first of all, so Professor Chris Tang and I, we really share the same profession, which is operations and supply chain. That's our field. Also, we both serve on this organization that Yin mentioned earlier called Informs. That's the world's largest organization for data and decision sciences. Because of where I am at Johns Hopkins, and for those who are not familiar with Hopkins, we have about 3,000 medical faculty members, and actually the majority of our faculty actually on the medical school faculty. So that's just give you a sense about how the composition of our faculty, and you almost have to be anti-medicine and not to work on anything related to health. And I happen to be very, very pro-medicine, so I work with a lot of medical colleagues. Yin mentioned my training in robotics and computer science. So since about 2018, I've been working with quite a few of my colleagues here at Hopkins, and right now this community have evolved to about 100 members, people who are medical doctors, public health researchers, business scholars, and a lot of MBA students, graduates who are interested in applying AI into healthcare delivery. So when you think about just give you a perspective, we have about 3,000 faculty members on the medical school faculty, but we have about 200, 300 of them who are actually using AI in their daily medical practice. So that's about a 10% penetration rate. We think that's not enough. We think that 10% should be about 50%, 6% in the next 3 or 5 years. So there's a lot of room for scaling medical AI to translate AI into patient outcomes. So that's my passion, that's my work. That's what I do 80 to 90% of my time these days.
This is fantastic. And thank you both for sharing. And I think it provides us with very valuable context into our discussion in a minute. So I guess speaking about artificial intelligence, speaking about the history of it, it could be traced back to 1950s. And the term has been first introduced by John McCarthy. And during the past years, we have heard different terms such as machine learning, deep learning, AlphaGo, and now generative AI, which is becoming the new frontier of the long AI journey. I guess the first question is to Aditi. Could you please help us understand what is generative AI and how does it differ from the other types of AI, such as predictive AI, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, AI has been available to us since the 50s, and there's been various different iterations that we have seen. Traditionally, predictive AI has been used, which focuses on a lot of structured data. So it focuses on a future event by analyzing these historical data sets and assigns a probability or a weight to say how likely is an event to happen. For example, so we can answer questions like, does this X-ray show high risk of osteoporosis? So it'll look at historical structured data and provide a probability on whether or not it can or it cannot. So it's making these predictions or recommendations based on various AI and machine learning techniques. And predictive AI uses these to streamline the data processing. Now, recently, generative AI, which many of you are now aware, has come in the limelight much because of ChatGPT powered by OpenAI. And if you have used ChatGPT, it's a very conversational style chatbot. You can ask very human-like questions, and it uses these data that has been trained in historical data sets to generate new data. And that's a key difference. Generative AI is generating novel content informed by training the data sets, whereas predictive AI is actually analyzing the data sets and creating novel insights. So in generative AI world, we can create new content. It could be new image, code, marketing materials, music, movies, stories. It can create any content there. So essentially, Gen AI uses many predictive processes to predict the next unit of content within the results that we're looking for. So an example for here would be Gen AI, could generate a treatment plan for a specific patient using inputs such as their age, their weight, their diagnosis, and it'll generate that treatment plan. And that's really what the world that we are looking at now, where it's continuing to generate new content based on data sets that has been trained on.
Yeah, this is very helpful. It sounds like generative AI is creating new content that is not directly derived from the input itself. Yeah, so Ting-Long, probably you can also add your perspective on how does the generative AI impact healthcare setting.
Of course. So first of all, I really appreciate that Aditi's excellent introduction, also to different kind of AI tools and also distinction between predictive versus generative AI. So one way of looking at generative AI is that in addition to providing predictions, classifications of labels, it also connects things. If you could think of, for example, so the outcome of generative AI, kind of like a different beats, but with generative AI, and you could actually connect those beads together to become a necklace, right? So that's just, when we look at it, it becomes more coherent, provides more context. In fact, a lot of people think of generative AI as a fad, as a trend, but it's not. In fact, even before ChatGPT was launched, so Transformer, which is the technological architecture behind generative AI, much of generative AI, has already been widely applied in healthcare. So the way a lot of people thought of the role of a transformer is that it could really, as the name indicates, it could really transform a medical AI, healthcare AI, in the sense that it could provide more explainable, more coherent, more flexible, more versatile, medical AI. So I think it's really, really revolutionary, and it's really hard to overstate its importance and its impact.
This is great. It's really making our conversation very exciting now. And I think speaking about generative AI, as Aditi also mentioned about ChatGPT. So we look at its launch since November 2022. And within the first 3 months, it was able to rapidly amass over 100 million active users, making it one of the fastest growing consumer-facing application in history. Well, when we look at the AI applications in organizations, the adoption rate is increasing, but sometimes not advancing at a comparable pace. So I'm wondering, what are the differences between the consumer-facing AI applications versus those that designed for employees? And specifically, what are the key drivers and barriers for the employee-facing AI adoption in the healthcare setting? Maybe Ting-Long, you can help us to understand a little bit more about it.
Sure. First of all, your observation is absolutely correct. So ChatGPT has really become the biggest driver of AI applications in healthcare space. Because for many, many years, in fact, I remember October 2022, that's about 2 months before the launch of ChatGPT, I actually gave a talk at UCLA Anderson, and I was invited by Professor Tang to talk about AI augmented healthcare. At that time, there was still quite a bit of confusing or uncertainty about, is this real or is this just a trend? This is just a bubble. We spent a lot of time trying to get people to adopt AI in the healthcare practice, but the pace of adoption was very slow. So ChatGPT really changed the game. It changed the game because ChatGPT was a consumer-facing AI. So it's in everyone's pocket, it's in everyone's fingertip. Everyone can use it, everyone can try it. So people really, that's really the magic of a consumer-facing AI, is that in the sense that if you can create a really engaging user experience, people will keep using it, people will learn things from it, people will interact with AI applications. So the key performance metric for consumer-facing AI system is actually the engagement. To what extent consumers are willing to use this AI system more than once, and probably twice, 3 times, every day, every week. So engagement is actually the key. But as consumers try ChatGPT, a lot of these consumers are healthcare executives, people like ADT, and also physician leaders. Once you have seen that power, it's only natural people start to think about how to incorporate AI into workflows. So here you're talking about employee-facing AI. For example, ADT mentioned earlier about her leadership role in the first software as a medical device project. And that is a classical type of employee-facing AI. In the healthcare setting, this will be AI used by physicians and nurses, healthcare leaders. For employee-facing AI systems, the key performance metric is productivity. In short, the question is, can you make people more productive? Because if the answer is not, people are not going to use it, because it only adds to work, only adds to confusion and the trouble, then people are not willing to use it, right? So the differentiation between consumer-facing AI and employee-facing AI is that for the former, the key performance metric is engagement. For the second, is really about productivity. When we design different kind of AI systems, we need to keep these performance metrics in mind.
Yeah, this is really helpful. I feel like it is really important to have a employee-facing AI to expand the capability and access provided to the healthcare setting. So Aditi, do you want to add some of your aspects too, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Ting-Long stole my thunder on productivity on it. But what I'd like to say is I don't believe there's a big difference between consumer-facing AI and employee-facing AI. And mainly because as employees, we are also consumers of this particular technology. So one example I want to give you is, recently I lead a team of technologists. We are constantly looking at code to build software applications for our patients or providers. And one key aspect of our life cycle is code reviews. We do each other's code review, and we actually look at thousands and thousands lines of code on a daily basis to ensure that it's adhering to our standards, it's meeting our compliance needs, and that it's following the standards that we have created. We currently did a proof of concept where we used generative AI to actually look at blocks of codes to help us understand in these chunks where we are not meeting these particular standards. So we created a POC where it generates an email, sends an email saying this line of code and this section needs to be reviewed. A key piece here is human in the loop is still important, whether it's for consumer-facing AI or it's employee-facing AI. And in majority of the cases, it has to start within our day-to-day operations. And how can we improve our productivity day-to-day basis? That's what's really going to help the consumers that you are serving as well. Another example is, let's look at payers, for example. In the payer model, there are many administrative functions that have to sift through logs and data to determine whether a particular health plan is eligible or not for a particular patient. Now, imagine if we can use Gen AI to sift through logs of data and automatically, and reducing the amount of time that it takes the human to go through it manually, and then providing them those insights so they can review and they can reduce the burden on the manual labor itself and have the summarization. But I keep emphasizing that human in the loop is still going to be important for any type of consumer facing or within improvement of your productivity tools.
Yeah, this is actually a good point. As when we look at the AI assistant tools that facilitates the decision making, what is the relationship between human and AI algorithm is always one of the questions. And I think, as you both also mentioned, human being is really important during this process, and AI's role is probably to free up some time for the healthcare professionals or so to be more focusing on the high value activities instead of repetitive activities per se. I think this is really a great example sharing. Thank you. So probably let's switch our gears to the patient-centric care. Patients always want their care personalized to them. And generative AI has proven its capability in managing large-scale database efficiently, including the patient data in healthcare. It will analyze patient data, but also help the diagnosis. And there is so much more than that. I'm wondering, how do you approach AI's role in patient-centric care and health? And what are the emerging trends or examples that you can share? I actually want to hear from both of you, since you always have very different perspectives and insights.
Can I jump in? Oh, go ahead, Aditi. Yeah, after you.
Okay, sure. Thanks. I think as, if you're kind of following the healthcare news, you can see that there's rising pressures to decrease healthcare costs globally. There's emerging value-based care models that have come in the last few years. And in general, there's the healthcare information is being digitized, and it's transitioning from a one-size-fit-all to a much more outcome-based targeted therapies. So precision medicine is one of an emerging trend that we are really monitoring very closely. And actually, looking into how we can leverage that. If you can imagine, there's been scientific advancements in the genomics field, meaning for precision medicines, the data sets that are available are at a large scale. So we have hundreds and millions of genome sequencing available. And with AI platforms, we can analyze millions of gigabytes of data in a matter of days instead of taking months for it. So that actually reduces your drug development and discovery time of 10 to 15 years significantly on it. So when you think about from a patient-centric standpoint, one of the most important things we can do is every day is important for a patient who's dealing with serious illness. So if we can look at these large-scale data sets and reduce the amount of time it takes for us to develop these therapies and cater in terms of a personal treatment plan by looking at lifestyle, looking at the diversity of the data, and what needs to be done in order to shift from a more diagnosis and treatment to more of a prevention and recovery. That's going to be the best outcome we can do for our patients.
Yeah, first of all, I wholeheartedly agree with what DT just talked about, the impact on precision medicine, get different data sets, really brings them into healthcare delivery. So my perspective is more from the population health outcome perspective. Just look at what's going on in the United States, even with a lot of technologies, new therapies, new treatments, new drugs, and we are still facing declining life expectancy. We have mirable healthcare outcomes. So in fact, if we plot our healthcare outcome with other advanced countries, we're pretty much outlier, and we are really embarrassment by any measure, by cost, by quality. So there's really, it's actually essential for us to really to have a major breakthrough in the way healthcare is being delivered. For example, let me give you one example. In terms of diabetic care, about 10% of US population has diabetes, which, by the way, is not unique, which is actually the same proportion of people across the world. About 10% of the world population have diabetes. But what's unique about the United States is that the screening rate for diabetic patients for one of the complications called retinopathy is very low. And we generally expect every diabetic patient, type 1 and type 2, to be screened once a year for retinopathy because it's a sight-threatening disease. And it's actually leading cause of blindness among working age population. And in the US, we're looking at only 15% screening rate, which is as low as in most of the developing countries. Whereas you look at other developed countries, such as UK, you look at about 80% screening rate. So we have really mirable situation. This is a dire situation. This is a crisis, and in part because the way healthcare is being delivered. So every diabetic patient has to see a primary care doctor before being referred to a specialist for screening. And because this is a two-step process, it creates a lot of friction. So if we could use AI to shorten the process, instead of asking everyone to navigate through this two-step process, we make it a one-stop solution. You can increase screening rate dramatically. And we have run a study here at Johns Hopkins. We found that if you provide AI solution immediately, which, by the way, has already been approved by FDA for clinical use since 2018, and it has almost same level of accuracy as most of the specialists, retinal specialists, you can increase the screen rate from 15% to almost 100%. And we need more of such solutions because we have a population health crisis. And so AI is actually essential for us to really turn around, the kind of public health trend we're facing right now in the US.
Well, this is really powerful data. And I feel if AI can play a role to optimize the patient journey, that will really bring a lot of benefit to our patient. Another aspects about the patient data is whenever we speak about it, the information security and data privacy always comes up. So I'm wondering, what is your thoughts about how to balance the data accessibility versus the data privacy?
Yeah, I can start, and I agree with everything Ting Long said in terms of the population health and the crisis we're looking at. I think what we have to understand today is if you look at electronic health records, the infrastructure stores a lot of information, everything from genomic data to molecular data to even, management functional data such as scheduling, billing, insurance data. And it's in both structured and non-structured format. Yet, despite the information that we have collected for patients, there are so many barriers in this data to get accessibility to that. We still have offices today that are faxing results to the provider offices. And those reports are scanned and attached through there. So these barriers actually continue to affect the risks that patients and the data that we are taking. And in terms of some of these ethical and risk, consideration, I think one of them is in the big data and the genetics data that we are capturing. If you think about, there's an emergence of commercial genetic testing companies. They're collecting large amounts of data today. So there is a possibility of that data being misused or mishandled. And then secondly, I just talked about precision medicine. Even in precision medicine, right, if we get into advanced diagnostic testing, some patients will actually worry about the cost that involves to get to a precision medicine. And even then, if precision medicine is available, it could be disproportionately available, and not every patient will get access to the precision medicine. So we have to continue to monitor this risk. We have to be transparent. We have to be very conscious about how we're securing this across the world globally. And there's actually, a lot of government agencies are working really hard to provide guidelines in terms of how these data sets should be handled at a global scale.
So I agree with everything Aditi just said. So I just want to add a few points. And first of all, I just want to make the point that we have to be very careful about AI. What do we mean when we talk about AI? Not only we have many different types of AI, but also we have to be careful about who designs AI, right? Like we use AI, we do not even say the AI, right? We say AI like God, right? So like without, so we think of AI as one thing, but it's not. So AI is, first of all, AI is many, many things, many different kinds of AI, many different AI systems, and also who designs the AI system also matters. When you use design AI system that scans a lot of EHR data, like Aditi mentioned, and make risk prediction and shape the treatment, diagnostic process, shape the patient journey, as you mentioned earlier, there's a risk that the AI may be biased, maybe financially biased. There could be incentive for such AI systems to generate either excessive diagnostic procedures or treatments or less than adequate treatment plans. Now, that's a risk. The other part of the risk is that not only AI systems can reinforce human biases because the quality AI system depends on the quality of training data. They could also create new biases that we don't even know. Let me give you one example. These days, AI systems, you could actually identify patterns that no humans can identify. And if you take a picture of the back of your eye, essentially you get retinal images. So you can, today's any MBA students can use automated AI training software to train an AI model that can predict gender of the patient just based on image of someone's retina. That's something that no human doctors are capable of doing, right? So the implication is that when you build AI algorithms using this structured and unstructured data, you could actually create a lot of situations in which AI algorithm use these shortcuts, using gender, using races, using age, using nations of origin as basis for a lot of decisions. That could create a lot of biases that we don't even know. So not only they reinforce existing biases, they could create new biases that not beyond known to humans.
Yeah, I guess this is really a great point. Because for generative AI or AI in general, it's like a black box. And it is a tool, right? Depending on who is using it and how we are using it. So I guess you bring up the concept of responsible use of AI, especially I think in the healthcare setting that we need to really understand how explainable it is and how to utilize that. And I think another very good concept, Ting Long, you mentioned is about equity. because we know like generative AI or AI generally is analyzing the historical or existing data. And we know many of the populations are under the treatment, like suboptimal treatment that they are taking. And we don't want to, explore the new data package based on the old pattern. So I think this is another question is how do we kind of balance it and making sure we are not perpetuating the inequity in terms of the AI and the pattern recognition.
I would say responsible AI is a key word that we need to implement. So I think AI gives us the ability and the potential to analyze millions of data within days. Now, it's up to us on which data sets we are analyzing. So creating that diversity in our data sets to look at populations from various socioeconomic backgrounds, various ethnic groups, race, that is a responsibility of those of us who are working in this industry. So I think, having a responsible AI governance within organizations and being very conscious about how we are implementing diversity and inclusion in our data sets is going to be critical moving forward.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that. Basically stick to all the ethical principles and responsible development principles. I would also like to emphasize the importance of real-world evidence. I think that's like golden standard in the world of medicine and healthcare. So until we see real-world evidence that AI systems are safe, effective, and equitable, we shouldn't rush to buy in. And of course, we should be willing to experiment. We should absolutely willing to try new things, but we shouldn't just assume what's being coded is true. So we should treat AI systems just like any other kind of medical innovations, insist on rigorous testing, rigorous real-world evidence, and post-market testing. So Aditi has been leading software as medical devices experiments projects. So you know that this is so from FDA perspective, they do not really need to see real-world evidence to approve a medical device using AI. But from consumer perspective, in this case, consumers would mean healthcare leaders and physicians and nurses. They absolutely need to see real-world evidence for them to have the kind of confidence that AI does not create new biases. AI actually helps people in being infectious, and also AI is safe in the sense that do not kill people, they do not harm patients. So I would emphasize that. And also, you mentioned the Gen AI. I think the Gen AI has created a lot of illusion of being really precise, being really personalized. But unfortunately, in many cases, we see that Gen AI provides precision, precise AI solutions, but they're precisely wrong, right? And we also talk about having very clear guidelines about AI development. But the problem with this kind of guidelines is that they are clear, they're really well specified, but over time they become clearly outdated, right? So there is a lot of room, but eventually we need to go back to the scientific principles, insist on seeing more of real-world evidence before we rush to implement any AI solutions.
Yeah, this is really helpful. And then, so Ting-Long, you mentioned about the guidelines and guidelines of the AI implementation, etc. And I think we also look at the regulatory body's role right here. And when I look at the data, actually by October 2023, FDA has approved about 691 AI-enabled medical devices, and about 69% was approved since the year of 2022. So I'm actually wondering, how is the FDA considering regulation of the AI-enabled devices, and what is the role do regulatory bodies play in shaping the future of AI application in healthcare? Ting-Long, probably you can share some of your insights here.
Sure. I'm actually part of my work is really work with this device called Luminetics Core, formerly known as IDDR, that was the very first FDA-approved autonomous AI tool. We've been using that at Hopkins since 2018. So I think the FDA regulation, here's my own perspective, which is also shared by many other people in the space, is that the FDA regulation, first of all, is clearly very weak. And in the sense that it's a very low bar. It's very hard to meet, but it's still very low bar to get FDA clearance. But still, we have a higher bar than European standards. It's much easier to get approved in Europe and then in the United States. But even if when you look at the 692 devices approved here in the US, they're not equal, right? None of them are equally good. Some of them are stronger, some of them are weaker. Some of them have been widely deployed, and some of them are rarely used. Last year, New England Journal of Medicine AI journal published an article that basically looked at 11 billion CBT insurance claims. Really, only 2 or 3 devices got more than 10,000 uses in their data set. Of course, the data set is incomplete. So it may not be a complete record, but just give the sense that most of the AI devices are not being used very widely in healthcare. They're not being used not because providers are irrational or anti-AI. They're not being used because we don't have the kind of confidence that they're actually useful. We don't have confidence they actually help providers become more efficient and more productive, not to mention not to harm patients, right? So we don't really have definitive evidence in terms of safety, in terms of efficacy, and in terms of equity. And then in the middle, even if you can demonstrate those key technical metrics, you also have the issue about the human-AI interaction kind of metrics. Are these AI systems well-designed, can be readily embedded into workflows? Are they user-friendly? Do they really help physicians become more productive? And the answer isn't always yes. In fact, in many cases, the answer is no. If you think about why ChatGPT was such a hit, it has a lot to do with GPT, but it actually has more to do with chat. So the chat interface is really interactive, really user-friendly, really completely changed the game of AI systems. And a lot of AI systems not being widely used, frankly speaking, because they're not really well designed. We also have to change that aspect. There's an aspect about human-centered design aspect that we need to do a better job.
Well, this sounds like it's a long journey to go to making sure the devices are being approved and also able to be convinced by the healthcare professional to be used in the workflow. It's really a long journey to go through. And I think we have been discussing about patient, healthcare professional, regulatory bodies. And I think generative AI is also a big topic in the biotech and pharmaceutical area as Aditi is in. So I'm wondering, so Amgen as a leader in the biotech industry, it has been using the AI across drug discovery and development continuous. So I'm wondering, what are the exciting initiatives Amgen is leading in this regard, and if there is any thrilling project you've been involved in and can share with us.
Yeah, I think the opportunity for using AI, it really starts from disease understanding all the way to post-marketing, right? So drug discovery, drug development, regulatory submissions. But I agree with Ting Long in terms of using this when we have real world evidence, when we have the proper metrics for safety and efficacy. I can say that based on some of the proof of concepts that we are looking at in my space in the commercial world, it's really about productivity and removing the administrative burdens at this time with the use of AI. One example I can tell you that we're really excited about is we have hundreds of websites for patient education available on so many of our therapeutic drugs, and we have to ensure that they are meeting all of our compliance standards. And traditionally, we do have to continue to manually monitor and look at the content of these websites to ensure it's in compliance. And we can use AI techniques now to go through these hundreds of websites, reducing thousands of man-hours to help us understand where are the areas that we need to look at. But I'll reemphasize that, none of these AI projects or tools have really removed the human in the loop, because we still need to keep the human in the loop there. We still need to ensure that the AI models are not hallucinating and that the accuracy of the data that's been presenting is accurate. So I would say many of these projects are in proof of concept phase. The tool sets that now are available have allowed us to look at end-to-end processes and continue to improve the productivity as we go through this.
Yeah, thank you, Aditi, and thank you, Ting-Long. So now I think I'd love to turn it over to our Q&As from audience. And dear audience, if you haven't submitted yet, please type it or vote it in the Slido. So I will start from the first question. What are the top areas where healthcare executives are looking to implement AI in the next few years? So I guess it's about the trend. Ting-Long, do you want to take the lead on this?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the question is about health systems leaders. What are the trends? What are people doing? So my own observation at Hopkins, also at other institutions such as Mayo Clinic and Stanford, UCLA, has been that every institution has multiple generative AI pilot projects, usually in partnership with one of those big organizations such as Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta. So there are a variety of things. For example, think about using AI to listen to patient-physician conversations and generated visit summary, generate patient notes, and also in many cases to do some of the physician work, and such as assessment of different treatment plans, and even provide a second opinion for diagnosis for treatment planning. There's also some more routine kind of AI, such as Aditi mentioned, to reduce administrative burden. For example, to automatically draft messages to patient message, automatically draft reply to patient messages, and to triage different patient messages to determine which ones are clinical related and non-clinical related. So I think that's what keeps every health system executive excited these days, to the extent that a lot of them told me that living in 2024 feels like another COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, it's not real pandemic, but just in terms of the excitement, engagement, energy, and people are showing to rush to implement Gen AI. It kind of feels like 2020, and you basically sleep 4 hours a day, and you talk to a team member, you meet your team members 5 times a day. So that kind of a thing. That kind of frenzy, and a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm. So definitely, this is real. This is happening. I think looking at the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see more of evaluation projects, like Aditi mentioned. Aditi emphasized the importance of real-world evidence, and your work from biotech side, from the healthcare system side, there's a strong sense that we need to develop really rigorous framework to evaluate AI systems, especially generative AI. Because with predictive AI, you could actually look at the ground truth, look at accuracy. With generative AI, frankly speaking, we don't know where to look at. And it's no longer possible to have a one-dimension performance metric. We look at a variety of things, and it's hard to, so we need rigorous evaluation framework, and we need more evaluation studies across health systems. We need to compare notes, and not only across health systems, but also with biotech sector, and for us to really deliver results.
Aditi, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say like one of the emerging trends in this industry is early identification of patients with potential disease. I think often, and we've experienced this, we go to the doctor multiple times before a disease or illness has been identified. And when you think about this in serious illness cases, stroke, heart attack, cardiovascular disease, if we can use some of these data sets, use some of these toolkits to identify patients earlier, can we reduce or prevent future illnesses as a result of using some of these large language models?
Yeah, thank you both for sharing it. I'll take another question. So the question is, how can industry collaborate with the FDA to streamline the regulatory process and facilitate better deployment of AI innovations while they are still emerging?
Well, I can offer my quick perspective. First of all, I think they're not supposed to collaborate with FDA. And so FDA is supposed to be very independent, scientific regulatory body. I mean, people have a different perspective, but my view is that FDA should be independent. That independence is front and central to its mission. FDA should stick to its very rigorous standards. But that's what not FDA is doing right now. And what the FDA right now is doing is that they are creating a lot of regulatory hurdles, which are not necessarily facilitating efficiency in approval process, but also it doesn't really facilitate a lot of continuous learning, in the sense that once you have AI devices approved by FDA, you cannot just update your algorithms as you get more data. Essentially, for the most part, you have to submit application for approval and new devices. And once you get approved, you have to freeze your algorithms. So that does not really facilitate continual learning, which is central to AI development and deployment cycle. So I think there should be more of a conversation. FDA should have more of expertise, AI expertise, medical expertise, public health expertise. But I don't think there should be any direct involvement or direct collaboration.
Great. So maybe to the next question. So there is a question about mental health. Is mental health diagnosis even more behind compared to the physical diseases? As some of the diagnoses, such as DSM and ICD, updates and change over time and can be very significant, can vary very significant.
I don't know if I can answer if it's behind on it, but what I can say is that it's definitely an area that does not have enough data sets to make any predictions or generate additional insights on it. And I can closely speak to this because my sister is a mental health therapist, and she provides therapy to a lot of these patients. But so much of it is privacy related. It's information that's within the therapist and the patient. So I'm not sure how we could go into, identifying these patients to predict that. But I do believe that there are probably leading indicators that are currently not captured during our regular, assessments when we see our physicians that we could be doing in the EHR systems. And this is to my point earlier that there is a lot of data there, but because a lot of the downstream uses of the data is not fully streamlined today, that it prevents us from getting access and usability of that data.
So I'll just quickly add to Aditi's answer that I think accessibility is a key. And, in US, certainly we have a very severe issue of accessibility to mental health care. But even in other countries with national healthcare system, for example, Canada, affordability is still main barrier to access. It's like most health system covers the physical health part, but not mental health. Mental health is still very, very unaffordable. It's very hard for most people to spend $200, $300 an hour to get mental health help. And there is also privacy issue that Aditi mentioned earlier. And, there is this solution of a telehealth, mental health provided through telehealth, but that's also insufficient. Back to the privacy issue, I think Aditi mentioned earlier, think about the new moms. And we knew that a lot of new moms that suffer from depression, For them to see a therapist is actually very challenging. For them to get a telehealth is also challenging because they're surrounded by a lot of other people, by their partners, by their parents, by friends, many cases. There's also privacy issue. I think AI does not do the whole job, but if we could have chatbots kind of AI can provide the kind of help, provide the kind of triaging services in many cases, it could definitely fill the gap, the care gap we have. Right now, we just don't have enough accessibility. And from operational perspective, we need to fix that.
Thank you. It sounds like a very complex area that requires a lot of effort from different aspects. So due to the time, we'll take the last question from the audience. Regarding AI engineer developers, can the panelists discuss their challenging in finding engineer developer with experience in healthcare tech and AI field? Probably Aditi, we can start from you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something very close to my heart today. I think that finding good talent has been definitely a challenge in this field. But a lot of it is also because the rules of the games are also changing in terms of what skills we're looking for. So, for example, with the emergence of generative AI, prompt engineering is something that we are very closely looking at. And in order for us to look at good prompt engineers, we also need to look at very basic skills like reading, writing, conversational skills to ensure that the prompt engineer can code that properly. So, I would say that although it's a challenge, I'm very hopeful that there's a lot of smart engineers and developers out there that are currently learning many of these new tools. And please contact me if you are, so we can bring the right talent in.
This is great. I mean, it has been really exciting conversation on AI and healthcare, and we are starting to see the full promise of this technology that could transform patient outcome, advance the medical administration, improve personalized and patient-centric care, and also accelerate research. But at the same time, also consider the responsible use of AI and the ethical and other obligations into this whole process. So again, I think it's a journey for everyone to explore. I just want to have a big thanks to our panelists, Professor Ting-Long Dai and Aditi, for your great insights and sharing. And also big thanks to our audience for your engagement. It has been a great discussion. And until next time, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.